Welcome, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole. We have a fantastic show coming up for you tonight. Les Velez of OPUS is coming up next. Welcome back, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker. With me, as always, my co-hostess, Victoria Monday. And down in the chat room, Alina, moderating the chat. We have a fantastic show coming up for you tonight. Les Velez is with us. He is the co-founder of OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, founded that way back in 1994. He's also an author and is heavily involved with MUFON. So we're really looking forward to picking his brain this evening. Les, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure. I totally respect people like you who have put together support for experiencers, people that have, had all of these, wild things happen to them. And, I'm an experiencer. Victoria's experienced different things, and I know a lot of other experiencers. So for you to have founded an organization that's, back in 94, that's a while back. And providing that support for people is amazing. And so I want to thank you for that and ask you, we'll get right into it. Tell us about OPUS.
Okay. Well, it's interesting how it came about. Probably the thing to do would be to back up even further from the original founding date in 1994. When I was 11 years old, I saw something. This is when I lived in Connecticut. And it was an October evening. And I was coming back into the house, and I noticed this object over a tree line. It was not making any noise at all, no sound. It was oval in shape and kind of whitish in color. And it just, slowly drifted, over the tree line and then passed into the area behind the house and into the, finally disappearing. And it scared the hell out of me. I had no idea what it was. And so when I got into the house, I tried to get my father to come out. And well, by the time I did get him to come out, it was gone. And he said, well, it was probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud. And but I didn't buy that. And soon thereafter, I went to the library and started to look up books on UFOs. And back in those days, this is the late 50s, George Adamski was the prominent ufologist, if you will. And so I started reading his books, and I was totally hooked. And shortly thereafter, it was like, I was trying to get as much literature as possible regarding the subject and trying to understand it. But after a while, it kind of faded. It was like somebody, threw the switch in the opposite direction, from being on to off. And,
well, you were a young guy back then. Life probably happened, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Girls became a little bit more important in my life.
Right.
And, darn it, But anyway, and then, I graduated from high school and then went off to college and eventually got married and went into the service for a while and came out of the service and then eventually moved out to California in 1985. And I picked up the San Jose Mercury News one day, and Stanton Freeman, nuclear physicist who recently passed away, gave a lecture in his inimitable style that was fascinating in talking about UFOs and the government cover-up. And this was at San Jose City College. And I expected to see a handful of people there, but the auditorium was packed. And on my way out, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network that was established in 1969 by a couple of engineers down in Seguin, Texas, had a table. And they were talking about their monthly journal. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get this journal because I want to, it was like somebody threw a switch again. It's like
Yeah.
it was off and now it's on again. And so I started to get that. And after a while, it was like, this is not enough, folks. I got to get more involved. So I found out that they had a field investigator training course. And so I decided to do that. And I became a field investigator. That's when things got interesting. Uh, Almost without exception, the cases that I got involved with were not only sightings, but people were telling me that they had contact with non-human intelligences. And so, um, that to me was the beginning of a very interesting journey. And these people would ask me if I knew of other people having similar experiences, and I said, yes, I do. And so the next thing I know, I'm facilitating a support group in San Jose, California. And that's when I started to hear things that I'd never heard before, in none of the books that I had read up to that point. And this is the early 90s. And the cases were just phenomenal that they were telling me. And one of the cases that was a couple. They were amateur pilots actually, and they were picnicking in a state park north of Santa Cruz, and they were coming out of the park. It was getting to be dusk, and they noticed this light over the ocean, Pacific Ocean, and this light started to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it was over their head, and it was a triangular craft. And this craft made no sound whatsoever and silently moved past them into this canyon and just sat there. And then he noticed another light over the ocean, and this light got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was over their head finally. And the first craft, they felt they were looking at it. The second craft, they felt it was looking at them, and they became frightened. And this craft again moved into the canyon behind them. And this happened 5 more times. There was a total of 7 craft that were in this canyon, and they were in this horizontal position, just kind of slowly hovering and moving like this. And then they went horizontally, lined
Oh,
up,
interesting.
and then they went around a corner, but there was no corner. And they just disappeared. Well, at that point, they decided to leave, and this part of the park it's got quite a bit of elevation, and they were coming down out of there. And even during the day, this is a difficult passage to go through. And they felt like they were on automatic pilot, and they kind of felt like they were drifting down out of there. And then the next thing they know, 3 hours later, they're in this restaurant, which is only 5 to 10 minutes away from where this park is. Uh, and they have no recollection of how they got there. And so they had this 3 hours of missing time. And so
Lost time experience. Yeah.
yeah. And they showed up at one of the support group meetings, and they started to show the group pictures that they had taken of their body, that they had developed a rash after this experience.
Ooh.
And almost without exception in the group that day, they all said that they had a similar rash after one of their experiencers. And then one of the people in the group said, well, I know what that's from. And because they had gone to 2 different doctors, and the doctors couldn't tell them what was going on, or why, what this rash was. I mean, there's a lot of poison oak in this area, poison ivy, but it wasn't that. And this person said, well, it's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in when they bring you on board the craft to sanitize you.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
So, yeah. Anyway, I mean, that was the kind of stories that's, and by the way, this is one of the stories that I talk about in my book, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, and which, by the way, Linda Moulton Howe did the forward to it.
Oh,
I've known
fantastic.
Yeah, I've known Linda for quite a few years, and actually is a good friend. So I'm really happy that she was able to do that forward for me. Um, so anyway, I was written up in a Monterey Coast Weekly paper, uh, and about what I was doing with MUFON, and
Hmm.
this woman who was also written up in the article calls me afterwards and says, I would really like your help to understand what's going on with my brain waves when I'm in contact with these non-human intelligences. And so I kind of said to myself, like, how the heck am I going to help this person? And so I didn't think too much about it until she said that she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And that right away triggered something in me because I had a friend by the name of Dr. Eugene Lipson, who is also the co-founder with me of Opus, that he was interested in connecting with other doctors that were interested in the phenomena. So I finally convinced him. I said, we need to go down and talk to this lady and see what we can possibly do. And so we ended up going down there to meet with her. And as we walked in, we noticed there was this picture on the wall, and she's standing on the back of this rather large vessel. And I said, where is this? What are you doing? He says, well, it's down in the Caribbean, and I'm helping these treasure hunters find treasure. I said, really? How are you doing that? She says, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down.
Oh, wow.
So that was the beginning of an
Was the
unbelievable.
captain still with the galleon?
Well, I don't know where he was, but the bottom line was that somehow she was in contact with him. And so we found out later that after a near-death experience that she had, that she became very psychic, and
Okay.
she had all these abilities that came about after that. And so we spent an afternoon with her, and she was telling us stuff about ourselves that no one could possibly know about us. I mean, I didn't know her
Yeah.
from Adam. My doctor friend didn't know her, and so we came away from that afternoon saying, how can we help people like this? And so Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, was hatched that afternoon. And great, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're
Um,
welcome.
and so. Um, we put together a team of people to put this organization together. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in California, and we've basically been trying to help people having paranormal experiences, which is very broad based. It's
Hmm.
not just contact with non-human intelligences. It can be, spiritual awakening, kundalini awakening, poltergeist activity, things of that nature. But as it turned out, for whatever reason, we've been so involved with people, having the contact experience, with
Yeah.
extraterrestrials, or is it interdimensional, or is it time travelers, or is it the military, or, as I
We're a little bit
believe,
of both.
all the
Yes.
above? All the
Yeah.
above.
Yeah.
Whatever you can possibly think of is what it is. And so we've had to have a network, referral network of therapists that we can point people to, and we also have an online support group which is totally confidential. The only people that are in there are people that we vet and bring into the group, and then nobody from the outside can see their conversations. They are talking
Good.
24/7, and we have over 300 people in the group that are talking, 24/7 from all around the world. This is a phenomenon that's not just based in the United States; it's worldwide. And
Yes.
the Roper organization back in 1992. They said in that poll that was commissioned by Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and funded by Robert Bigelow, that there was like 6 million people in the United States that probably had an experience. And just extrapolate now, to this day and then around the world, how many people have been contacted. I think probably the majority of people in the world have been contacted, but they may not know it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Real quick, I have to recognize a $5 super sticker from Jeanette Kemp. So thank you very much, Jeanette. Absolutely appreciate that. She's a member of the Connected Universe portal. And yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's a lot more people. And, going back to something you said a little while ago, something that's great about your organization is people coming together and realizing you're not alone in all this. So many other people have experienced these sorts of things, whether it is paranormal or UFO, abductee, something spiritual. We're all having these various types of experiences.
Absolutely, it is a phenomena that unfortunately, the mainstream mental health community is not tuned into as they should be.
But you said you
And
have
we're
some therapists working for you.
Yes, we do. We
Yeah.
do. And there are people that are tuned in. And the unfortunate part is that there's not enough.
Yeah.
And so that's matter of fact, I'm in the process of doing just that. Matter of fact, it's on ongoing basis that we are reaching out to various people. And I called 6 people yesterday, and I got three people that called me back and said they would be very happy to be part of it. And again, this is something too that these people have a hard time with especially licensed and certified people, that their governing agencies don't look upon this as something that they would like to have their people involved with.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are very reticent about, advertising that fact, that they would be happy or willing to deal with people like this. Right away, people are said, okay, well, we're just going to send them to psychiatrists and give them drugs, to take care of the
Yeah. So
problem.
there's a fine line that they have to kind of toe there.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, and so it's difficult, but I think things are starting to open up. I mean, you look at the UAP report that came out in June from the federal
Mhm.
government, and so I think that the next step is that this abduction phenomena gets more people to really look at it in a way that's necessary to better understand it. And I think our federal government actually is already doing that, but not on an outward basis, if you will. They don't want to tell. Matter of fact, I know, for instance, Gary Nolan from Stanford University and Kit Green, excuse me, from has been involved with the CIA and other organizations, have been talking to abductees and experiencers about their situations, and so I think that's getting filtered back, and but I think as far as coming out, to the public, is we're not there yet.
Not quite. I mean, they at least recognize, hey, there are things in the sky we can't explain. And that seems like a very, very small baby step, but I guess it's at least something.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, Victoria, I've been kind of taking the questions here. So, you want to go ahead?
I have several questions, but they're not connected. So it's the unconnected universe.
Go for it.
I guess you could say. Okay. Has Opus ever, or do you map the when and where the people were abducted to see if there's any sort of correlation, like 10 people were in Kentucky and they all saw this and they were abducted or anything like that?
Well, As far as Opus, no, we don't do that, but MUFON does.
Oh, okay.
MUFON definitely does that. They map this stuff where happenings are occurring. And they have a map that I believe that you can go onto their site, MUFON.com, and you can actually pull up a map of the latest incidents.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was studying Tableau and I saw things like that, like Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings. But that's pretty cool. Did you ever read Fate magazine when you were a kid or a youngster?
Actually, I met the founder of Fate magazine many moons ago, and yeah, I was written up in that. Again, I don't remember when. This is, like I say, many moons ago.
Well,
But
I was
yeah,
wondering,
it's a great magazine.
are the stories that Fate put in their magazine, is there any grain of truth to them, or are they just like, because I loved Fate when I was growing up.
No, I absolutely. I think that what is truth? That's
Perception,
yeah, we have stories that we tell, just like I just told you a little while ago about that couple, you know, and those are the kind of things that people talk about, and is it true? For those people, it's very true. And like John Mack talks about the fact that something has happened to these people, and they don't have a psychopathology, and so the big question is, what is it? And that's the part that we do not understand. And again, we can only conjecture about things. We can throw out ideas as far as what these things are. People talk about hybrids. They talk about implants. They talk about marks on the body. They talk about how the craft looks and on the inside. I mean, there's so much to this. You're at the edge of the rabbit hole, but when you go down the rabbit hole,
there's no getting out. Yeah.
that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I've seen 2 UFOs and possibly met an ET, if you want to call it that, when I was a child. So how do I know because I wake up in the mornings and I'll have, like I woke up this morning, I have a huge bruise on my arm. I don't know where that came from. And I woke up one night and all my shoes were pointing toe to toe to toe all the way across the wall. How do I know I'm not sleepwalking, or am I sleepwalking, or could I possibly be going somewhere while I'm asleep and I'm not aware of it? I mean, how can you tell the difference?
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Okay.
If you have a camera set up that you could take of yourself at night, that would help. And some people do that. I mean, they actually, have recordings of what's going on at night, in the bedroom, and so you don't want that. You don't want that. Okay,
that's another rabbit hole.
Yeah, but that might be something that you could certainly find out right away. If that's something that you're doing, or is it something else that's going on? I mean, there's been some unbelievable videos taken of a couple that were asleep, and all of a sudden, you see the covers on the woman's side of the bed rise up, and the woman just disappears, and it becomes flat where she was.
Wow.
And then a little while later in the video, all of a sudden, again, the sheets rise up, and she's back in the bed, and there's no missing time on the tape or anything.
Oh, wow.
And so these are the types of things that happen with people as far as the abduction phenomenon, that they basically take your atoms and disassemble you, and then bring you wherever they want to, and then reassemble you later. It's there's no definitive answer on any of this, unfortunately, and the only thing that you can do is to understand that you're not alone. This is happening to a lot of other people.
Well, that's another question I was going to ask you. I had a friend this is, I don't want to make this about me, but
That's all right. Go for
Go ahead.
it.
No,
I'll
when
only
I
charge you $100. No, I'm only
send the bill to Mike,
Okay.
Mike Rickstecker,
Oh, there we go.
care of Ohio. Is that where you're living? Ohio.
Yeah.
When I was 2, I think I met an ET, and she came into my bedroom and she goes, my mom and sister were fighting, and she goes, "You're not like them. You're one of us." I'm like, okay. And she said it again, and then she disappeared. Never thought about, I never told anyone. I told my mom, and she just, dismissed me.
What did she look like? What did she look like?
Honestly, at that time, I was 2, and so she looked like one of the fairy godmothers from Sleeping Beauty. That was my frame of reference. So I wasn't scared of her. I can't tell you which fairy godmother she was. And I never told any of my friends or anything like that. I've kept that to myself for years. Now, last summer, I reconnected with my childhood best friend. She's 11 days older than I am. She lived a block away. And I told her that story, and she goes, I was abducted when I was 2. I'm like, "Oh, no, you weren't." And so we start comparing.
Oh,
And
my goodness.
our fathers worked together, and we don't know where they worked together. My dad was in the Army, and he guarded missiles in Washington, and her dad was in World War II, and he saw UFOs. So, I mean, is that something that's, well, I don't want to say common, but we both had positive experiences. Do people have like the Stockholm Syndrome, where they think, I like those guys. I'm not afraid of them.
Well, yes, Stockholm Syndrome is very common, especially in the later stages of the abductions where it stops. And then people wonder, well, why is it stopping? I'd like to continue. And like 70 to 80% of people that have been abducted or had this type of experience wanted to continue. It's only a small percentage of people that wanted to stop. And, in your case too, with if there was fighting going on, there's trauma, there's stress, and that leads to a level of dissociation that opens people up to receiving things like that. And I think those intelligence are very, very much attuned to those types of things, and that's when they come in. So, yeah, you've had a very real experience, and
That's
so,
good to know.
Yeah.
Because that always made me feel better when I didn't feel like I was fitting in. I'm like, well, I'm one of them. I'm not one of you guys. But the other time I saw a UFO, and I didn't put this together till like 2 years ago, was when I was pregnant. And then so when I did my regression last year with Ariana, I was like, well, why were they there? And she goes, oh, well, they were just watching. That's what we figured out. So is that something they do? They just kind of watch people throughout their lives, or do they take them and poke at them? Or
Absolutely. Yeah, they seem to have an affinity to do things like that, where they continue to monitor people for whatever reason, whether it's something that they talk about, the manipulation of our DNA and things like that, that they might have done, eons ago, because I certainly believe that they've been here as long as man has been here. And doing their thing. And so these things are they follow families. It's like, do you know if your mother or your father or your grandparents had experiences? Because most likely they have.
My dad did.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
so
When he was guarding a missile during the Korean War, and there was like a flight of birds coming over from the east. So I guess that would be like Russia. They picked up on their, they picked them up on their radar, and they were about to deploy the missiles. And all of a sudden they disappeared. So those birds went away. So
so I mean, these things follow families, and indigenous people, military people seem to be very common targets, if you will, of them for whatever reason. And we don't understand that. You hit something. I got to tell you this quick little story. One of the support group meetings. One of the people in the group says, "I've seen you before." I said, "Oh, where? At a UFO conference, grocery store?" No, I saw you on board a craft.
Oh.
I said, "Really?"
Oh, wow.
Okay. So I blew it off. I didn't think much of it. And about a year and a half, 2 years later, another person said, "Hey, I've seen you before." I said, "Really? Where?" UFO conference, grocery store. No, no, no. I saw you on board this craft. You were sitting on this bench naked and you were freaking out. And they told me to go over to you to calm you down. Well, at that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to go get regressed.
Yeah.
And so I went to 3 separate therapists and got regressed. And I did not have anything, you know, likened to alien, abduction type stuff or being on board a craft or anything like that. But I had multiple past lives,
Mhm.
multiple past lives.
Yeah.
And so someone I talked to more recently said, well, maybe you were actually abducted in a past life. And
Oh.
Hmm.
one of the stories, as a matter of fact, I have 25 stories in the book that I recently wrote from the people in the support group. And one of those people talks about the aliens talking about reincarnation
Oh,
and
wow.
the fact that, you know, this is something that follows you, you know, in various lifetimes. And so, and that gets back to the whole thing about we don't really die, folks.
Yeah.
Right.
The soul continues to move. Our energy continues to go on, and so if that's the case, I mean, anything is possible. Anything
Yeah.
is possible.
Okay, I have one
Absolutely.
more.
And I love that. Go ahead, Victoria. I'll let you.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
Okay, if there's however many, do we want to call them species or races or types of alien entities, whichever the correct term is, races? Why do we always see the grays? I mean, why don't we see all the other people?
Well, actually, now that's a good question. Um, I have a funny answer for that.
Okay.
I it seems like every time the Greys are involved, which they seem to be involved almost without exception in all the cases, there is also the reptilian type entities. There seems to be
Mhm.
the mantis type entities. There seems to be the Nordic type entities. There seems the military type entities. And so someone told me the other day, it's almost like there's an iPhone store out there for grays, where all these other races go and pick up a gray and they utilize them uh, because they're afraid to get involved with us because we're violent. And I've had stories from people in the support group that have talked about biting the grays, ripping arms off the grays,
Oh,
and yeah, and and so I can see why these other intelligence are afraid to interact with us in that kind of way. In other words, being abducted and putting on a table and then, being brought back, uh, because we are a violent breed, and so we tend to lash out and to try to stop these things typically. So
so are the grays like the worker bees, or the AI
yeah,
robots,
yeah, it seems to be
drones?
that case. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
biological drones, if you will. Yeah,
Yeah.
very
exactly.
interesting. Okay, I'm
So we
done.
have a bunch of questions that have come in from the chat. I do want to get to some of these. We'll take a few and then we'll get back to our questions. You guys can, of course, always throw more chat or more questions down there in the chat. You guys kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. It's from Betty Lange. Is it always an abduction or have people gone willingly?
Well, yeah, I think the initial phase of these processes, it's probably more attuned to an abduction. Uh, but it's how or what is involved with the abduction. In other words, is it an entity that seems to be benevolent as opposed to malevolent? Um, and you have both. just like here on Earth, we have good people and we have bad people, and we got the same thing going on up there, or wherever that is, this other reality, that we have, good ones and we have bad ones, and even within the races, there are good ones and bad ones. So, yeah, it depends on that initial phase, whether it's a good one or a bad one, and then generally speaking, however, as I mentioned earlier, 70 to 80% of the people find that these experiences are positive and they don't want them to stop. But then the remaining 20 to 25% are, want it to stop.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, because it seems like people try to really, really generalize extraterrestrials as they'll either try to demonize them all, or they'll try to say, oh, they're all benevolent, where it's, you get a mix of, just like you said, with humans, some people are good, some people are bad. And
yeah,
with ETs, it's kind of the same.
The Bud Hopkinses of the world and the David Jacobs are all in the negative camp, and then the Greers of the world are in the positive. Everything's positive. Well, I don't believe that's the case. I think it's a combination. You have good ones and you've got bad ones, and so if you hooked up for whatever reason with a bad one, I feel sorry for you, but
Yeah,
it
and
certainly
that's going
has
to be your
happened.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, a couple more questions here from the chat. Just want to say, I absolutely agree with you. By the way, it's a mix. From Judy Wilson, if this would pop up here. Here we go. Kind of the question a lot of people have: why do you think the ETs haven't come out to the world and say, "Here we are"? Why are they still so secretive?
Yeah, I think that if you believe Haim Eshed, that high-ranking general out of Israel that recently wrote a book, which unfortunately hasn't been translated into English, but during a conference, a news conference, basically talked about the fact that the aliens are here, but they're not making themselves known because they believe we are not ready to accept the fact that they are here. And evidently there's bases on Mars, bases on the moon, and that they are working with our governments, not just the US, but the world governments. So, and I've heard that said before, that but I think maybe 70% of the population would accept it and not have a problem with it. But then there's 30% that might have a real issue with the fact
Yeah,
that they are here.
yeah, and because I have that same quandary right now myself. What? Okay, what the question would be? Okay, what would make us ready? Because most people, I think, would say yes, there's other intelligent life out there in the universe. But then we also see how people panic when something with a pandemic or what have you happens, and
Yeah,
all the toilet paper gets taken off the shelves. So so what would
yeah.
make us ready, do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's a process going on right now to make us ready. I mean, the first step is, like, now that our government coming out and saying that UAPs are real. We don't think they're the Russians or the Chinese, and we can't say that they're the aliens, but we can't say that they're not the aliens.
Hmm.
So that's a big fact. That's a big step, and so I think eventually the next step is that the people that are having these more personal experiences will come out, and that the government will present that in a way that is going to be palatable to the majority of people. It's a dicey type of a thing, however, because you know um, if a person says, "Well, yeah, I've been contacted by the aliens," and they tell this to their company that they work for, and next thing they know, they don't have a job because they think you're cuckoo. Uh,
Right.
and so that is part of the issue, I think, and I think these intelligence understand that there has to be a more well-designed process, that they just can't, show up on the, White House lawn like the day the Earth stood still and tell people we're here, because I think there will be a lot of issues surrounding that. It's a step-by-step process and a desensitization process, I think, that's going on. And eventually it'll happen, but hopefully in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I hope so. And there's a lot of people point at the Brookings report, but I mean that was 50 years ago. And do you think Hollywood has had a good hand in trying to desensitize that or desensitize us?
Well, yeah, and certainly, gosh, the movie that came out years ago.
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters, yeah, just blanked out on it. That came out. That was great. But then there's other movies like The Sign,
Yeah.
that came out. This alien killing people and everything. That's not so good. But at the same time, I mean, it's somewhat of a balance. I mean, they could be good, they could be bad. And I think, as we talked about earlier, that it's a combination. I think we have some good ones, we have bad ones, and of course, there's people talking about the fact that the good ones are trying to protect us, and keep these bad ones from doing what they want to do, which is to basically take over this planet.
Yeah, and then you hear reports of ET sharing knowledge, which I think is wonderful. So, question here from Robert Hanna. Does he believe any military involvement in any of these UFO experiences?
Oh, yes. And I think I said that earlier too, is that,
you did.
Is it time travelers? Is it interdimensional? Is it extraterrestrial, or is it our military? And certainly there's been a lot of cases where people talk about the fact that they've seen military people on board these craft. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book called Rachel's Eyes. It's about a woman whose daughter actually went to school, Humboldt College, with a hybrid. And the military was very much involved with bringing her specialized food. And so this gentleman that asked that question should read that book and talk about the military being involved big time. Rachel's Eyes.
There you go, Robert. Rachel's Eyes.
Okay, you mentioned hybrid. This is my jumping in point. Hybrids.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, of course, I heard it. I heard hybrid.
Oh, no. My turn. My life is kind of weird now that I think about it. But back in the 90s, we had a New Age shop, and the lady said, "I can draw your spirit guide." I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to know what a spirit guide looks like, and if it's not real, then I get this really nice picture. And so she started drawing mine, and she goes, oh, you're from, and she starts telling me what planet system I'm from. And she goes, oh yeah, you have alien DNA in you. And I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm from Texas. I'm not alien. But, looking back, it might've been. Anyway, she goes, no, you misunderstand. Like millennia ago, and she was saying it was the Pleiadians, but I don't know. They came and they interbred with humans. And so technically you have extraterrestrial DNA in your DNA chain. I mean, is that something you hear about a lot, or the hybrids? Are they just like?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I talk about it in the book. I talk about hybrids.
Or are they just like, or the Nordic aliens walking around, just looking very fit and, judging us all?
Yeah, the hybrid thing is a interesting question, because Gary Nolan from Stanford University talks about that, and the fact that it's very difficult to understand what a hybrid is, because supposedly we don't have any DNA from an alien to compare. However, there are people that talk about the fact that they've been told that during their experiences that they are a hybrid. Matter of fact, I knew a person by the name of Cynthia Crawford, who has since passed away, who definitely believed that she was a hybrid. She's been written up in a number of books. And her organs were totally in different places in her body. Um, so, you know, is that a freak of nature, or is that something that was actually planned by this hybridization process? You know, we don't know. Uh, but there seems to be um, a plan afoot by the aliens to do this hybridization process in order to uh, either save their own civilization in some way, or to eventually possibly, you know, take over the planet by very peaceful means, if you will. Because if we all become hybrids and we all are them, then there's no guns being drawn or anything like that. So it's another question that we don't have a definitive answer for.
Do you think like the Nordics are walking around? Because I've heard they look almost like humans,
Well,
but
they
a
say
little bit
the
different.
hybrids. The matter of fact, David Jacobs' last book, he talks about the hybrids. That these things are so uh, hybridized that you cannot tell them from you and I. And you know, so you may be a hybrid. Mike may be a hybrid.
Oh,
You
Mike,
Maybe
never
Mike
I'm a
know.
definitely
hybrid.
is. Mike definitely Mike.
Yeah.
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 Well, and you know, these types of conversations always, make me wonder. I mean, you kind of touched on it there for a moment. Are they trying to save their civilization? Are they
Mhm.
en route here from somewhere else, just trying to find maybe a new home? But have we done the same thing? And at some point, we're going to have to do that ourselves because this solar system's at some point it's done, it's gone. So we're going to have to try to save ourselves at some point. So are we just kind of skipping around the universe, and are these other civilizations and other extraterrestrials, are they doing that as well?
Oh, it's absolutely possible. Some scientists talk about the fact, well, our physics doesn't allow that. You can't possibly come here from so far away. It would take, eons to do that. And well, that's an understanding of physics that they may have, but the bottom line is that there's other physics that we don't understand. And I had an opportunity to talked to Lou Elizondo 2 years ago before COVID hit, and had lunch with him actually with a member of our advisory board, Terry Lovelace, who's an abductee.
Oh, we've had Terry on before. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's part of our organization as well. And in a conversation with Lou, we talked about the fact that they pretty much understand how these craft operate. And that was an unbelievable revelation to me. That's a combination of what the skin of the craft is made out of and a very small energy source, not element 115 that Lazar talks about, but they say they don't need that. So, anyway, if that's the case, I definitely believe that our scientific community knows a hell of a lot more than they're talking about, and you know, and I think that you know Elon Musk is keeps talking about his starship and going to Mars and things like that. I think these guys know a lot more than they're letting on. That maybe we're going to need to do that in order to survive. Uh, I This is an interesting story. I saw an article about a woman, a clairvoyant that was in Bulgaria, who died in 1968. But she had made prophecies about various things happening, and one of the prophecies she had made was about the fact in the year 2027, an asteroid would hit the Earth, and that would be guided by aliens to us.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and I got So I sent that article to Linda Howe, and shortly thereafter, she sent me an article that was written by NASA at a conference in 2017 that said, and the title of which was like, asteroid hits Earth in 2027. And in big blocks, it says exercise only.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, okay, you know, maybe that's why all this stuff is ramping up. Maybe something is going to happen that we need to, be prepared for, get the hell off this planet. So who knows?
Yeah, because it seems like things have really been ramping up over the last few years. I know that Orbital Assembly Corporation has a plan in place to get at least a space hotel up there. They're looking to launch 2025. Last I heard, so you're seeing a lot of these things start to really move, and
right.
and I believe it's the first step to us getting off the planet and colonizing the universe, because I believe we have to. And like you, I don't believe it's just, us and our, current Newtonian physics that, the extraterrestrials have figured other means in order to be able to travel here. And they have billions of years of a head start on us anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So, go ahead, Victoria.
I was going to say, are they in the hollow earth?
Well, people talk about the reptilians being down there inside the Earth. So, and that's something that also Jaime Shed, that general, talks about, that the reptilians are, creatures of the Earth.
But you see all the UFO. Well, maybe you don't see all the UFOs. You hear stories of UFOs diving into the water. I mean,
oh, yes.
They're going somewhere.
Yeah, there's that, that supposedly base off of San Diego that
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a fun trip.
So we have a little less than 10 minutes left in the show. I do want to open up if you guys have any more questions from the chat room. I know we do have one from our chat moderator, Alina, which I'll get to in just a second, but I want to show here if it would come up. Come on. Well, now the system doesn't.
It's there.
It's not popping up on my end. Okay. Well, and there we go.
There you go. $10 from somebody.
Yeah, and Anthony has a $10 super chat. Thank you for talking ETs. So, well, thank you very, very much for the super chat. Absolutely appreciate that. So, and then the question from Alina. My system's doing weird stuff. Sorry about that, guys. So Alina asks, do you think extraterrestrial beings can make themselves look like shadow people, or do they have no reason to hide when they show themselves?
Oh no, they seem to do a lot of different things. They can create false memories. They can create screen memories. They seem to have the ability to transmute themselves into whatever the heck they want, based on what you're thinking, and what a lot of times they'll turn themselves into an owl or a deer or something, or as you say, a shadow person versus a gray. They have that ability for which is quite remarkable.
Yeah, you hear a lot of the reports about owls. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it seems to be a common thing where people that have had experiences talk about, well, I saw this 6-foot owl, but there aren't any 6-foot owls, not that I'm aware of anyway, in this world. So, but for whatever reason, it seems to be maybe something that is non-threatening, or a deer. I have one of the board members of Opus had an experience near Mount Shasta and with her husband, and they were surrounded late one night by some deer, which turned out to be not deer. As it turned out later under regression, that on a conscious level, she thought they were deer, but they weren't deer. So, these things are very common, absolutely very common.
Yeah, and you hear places like Mount Shasta where there seems to be a lot more activity. What do you think is so attractive about some of these specific locations like that?
Well, you hear stories about the fact that there's a base under Shasta,
Hmm.
and there's places like Sedona, Arizona, the Boynton Canyon. There's entrance supposedly there, and I've actually spent a number of nights there in Boynton Canyon, and I hiked around, but I didn't find anything. But that doesn't mean it wasn't there.
Right.
um, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of interesting places. I mean, you got the Skinwalker Ranch, and now the Blind Frog Ranch is another
Right.
one near there, 60 miles, I guess, from the Skinwalker Ranch. That they're having all kinds of interesting things going on. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of places that have that kind of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Victoria, you had started with a question a moment ago.
That was a minute ago.
Did it escape you? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, well, I lived in Arizona for a while, and of course, like all true Arizonians, I had a convertible. I was driving down the freeway one day, and I saw a UFO fly over. It was during the day, traffic everywhere. No one seemed to notice but me. Is that something that
Mm.
you've heard of?
Oh yeah,
Like, okay, she can see
yeah,
it, but nobody else can,
yeah.
or
That again is a very common thing that people that are supposed to see it. But also, I think that there could be a physical ability for people that you may have. Your visual range may be greater than I don't want to say normal, but
that's okay. I'm not normal. It's fine. I'm beyond normal.
yeah, that you have an expanded range of that your visual range is much greater than a lot of people, the standard people, and so that you're able to see things like that. I think that could be a very positive thing, but also I think too that there may be something going on that's more beyond that. They're trying to tell you something, and they're giving you that ability to see them as
Oh,
opposed to someone else. They're sending you a message.
would that be why when I was 2, the lady showed up like Sleeping Beauty's fairy
Yeah,
godmother, something not threatening?
yeah, I think so. I think that this was a calming thing for you. As you said, your parents were fighting, and this was something that gave you peace, and
Yeah.
so that's positive. That's really great.
Yeah, I think you just
Okay.
answered Diane's question here. Why do only some people see UFOs and others never do? So,
No, I think
I
his
think,
answer was I should get a convertible again. I think that's what
no,
the
there you go. There you
that's
go.
that's the answer. Yeah.
So, and we'll do this last one here from Betty Lange, Betty's Grand Old Folks. You feel more knowledge is available today than when you started?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think based on a number of books that have come out, like Catherine Martin's Extraterrestrial Contact is a good book. Gwen Farrell's come out with a book about forbidden questions. My book now, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. I think, we've gotten to the point where we have talked about so many things, whether it's marks on the body, hybridization process, the implants, and the fact that we have evidence from eons ago, Paleolithic wall drawings of UFO craft and things of this nature that and even in Roman times, they talk about these shining shields in the sky and things of that nature. This has been going on for eons, so that
Mhm.
part of it is very much, I think, beyond question. Uh, Now the thing, as far as the abduction phenomena. You look at books like Dr. John Mack's book, Abduction, and saying that, hey, these people do not have a psychopathology. And one of the studies that we did, OPUS did in conjunction with MUFON in 2009, called the Omega-3 study, basically took 71 abductees and 51 people that were control group, and we found that these people did not have a psychopathology. They weren't fantasy prone, and they had some differences in their temporal lobe activity versus the control group, and so there's definitely evidence of the fact that there is something going on. And I think with these studies, as a matter of fact, I'm in the process right now of finishing up the phase 1 of the Omega-4 study with a colleague of mine by the name of Russell Scalpone that was involved with the FREE study. The fact that we went out to therapists that work with these people that have had contact with non-human intelligences, and try to understand what their thoughts were and the modalities that they use to help these people. And that's what we ultimately want to do. We want to help these people having these experiences. And you can see all of this information on our website at opusnetwork.org. I think you'll find it quite enlightening if you take a look at that. And it's in our document section on the site. If you look under the document section, you'll find that Omega-3 study.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah. So, opusnetwork.org. We do have to wrap it up. One more plug for your book here, The Unknown Other. Where can people find that?
Yeah, they can find that by going to either our website, which is opusnetwork.org. There's a picture of the book, and you click on that, it'll take you right to Amazon, and it's also on Amazon. And if you're a Kindle Prime, it's free. If it's just Kindle, it's $9.99, and the paperback is $20.
All right, fantastic.
And all the proceeds go directly to Opus. I don't get a cent.
Oh, great, great. So you'll be supporting a fantastic organization. All right. So Les, thank you so much for coming on tonight. This was an absolutely fantastic conversation. So
thank you so very much. I really
you.
appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys. It's been a pleasure.
All right. You have a great evening. I hope to run into you one of these days and sit down and buy you a cup of coffee, pick your brain a little bit.
That'd be great. Where are you located?
I'm in the Cleveland, Ohio area. I'm not in Texas. Yeah.
Oh,
come to Texas.
You're in Texas.
But I do travel a lot. So
all right.
You never know.
Well, I'm going to the MUFON Symposium in Denver. So
great. Okay.
Oh, you'll see Katie then.
Yep. Yeah. So all right. Have a great night.
Hey, you guys too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right. Les Velez. Great guy. That was a wonderful conversation. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, we could talk to him. You guys are going to say it down there. Could have talked for another hour.
I didn't say it.
Yeah, I'm the one that said it this time. So,
but we could have. No.
Yeah.
I mean, how did they support people before internet? Because there was like a support group in the early 90s, and we saw dial-up and all that, and Prodigy and AOL. I mean,
we did things like bulletins at the community center, or little ads in the newspaper, your local circulars. Come on now, penny saver.
We had the green sheet here,
Yeah, we had ways. Smoke signals.
We still do that here. Drove through a forest fire the other day. Like a town hall meeting, people would come together. It's not all virtual.
Right.
Support group.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of support group. Yeah.
Okay.
They would get together at, rent out a room somewhere or whatever,
Okay.
Your local community center, or maybe they got a church somewhere. You don't know. You'd have to ask them, hey, where'd you guys meet at the beginning?
Well, if we had 2 hours, I'm just kidding.
All right. So next week we have Dan Class from the haunted Hinsdale house on. So we're going to kind of switch back to paranormal and hauntings and all that great stuff. So
I have stories about Dan.
oh yeah, Dan's a great guy. Love Dan. So do want to get to our Super Chat superstars for this evening. Really want to thank Jeanette Kemp for the $5 Super Chat and Ain Ethne for the $10 Super Chat a few minutes ago. So thank you both very, very much for being Super Chat superstars this evening. And Jeanette is also a member of the Connected Universe portal. So have the information right there, connecteduniverseportal.com. Join us. Yeah, tomorrow night on Connected Universe, Connecting the Universe, we're going to be talking about the stone circles, the standing stones, stone circles around the globe, that sort of thing. So that'll be fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We have one not too far from us. Well, it's near Austin, but.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't know that. What's the name of it?
It's in Sherwood. It's the Renaissance Festival out there. They have actually built a stone circle out there. There is energy.
They built it for the Ren Fair?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's not like one from thousands of years ago. It's one that they built.
They actually constructed it, but you can feel the energy out there. You can go out there and do all the magnetic stuff. You can feel it. But yeah, we even had a Viking funeral out there a couple of years ago. So that was really interesting.
Oh, you told me about the Viking funeral.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where it was. Cool.
At the Seven Sisters. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Let's get to the shout outs. Pop up the participant tab here. You guys are very active down on the chat this evening. So thank you very much for that. And Ethne, thanks for joining us tonight. Angels are live. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate that. Betty's Grand Old folks. That's Betty Lange. Thank you as always. Haunted Road Media's Fairy Queen, Diane Hilbert. Thanks for joining us once again. There's Fran Molino. She had popped in and said, hey, I'm finally able to join live. I know we changed the time and some people haven't been able to connect, but great to see you, Fran. Helen Espinosa, thank you as always. There's Judy Wilson. And thank you guys for all the questions tonight too, to give to our guest. There's Mary Haygood, a new member of the Connected Universe portal. Thank you for joining us out there, Mary, and here. Mr. Cumin, 02, thanks for joining us tonight. Robert Hanna, thank you as always. As is Stacy Comiskey, thank you as well. TFT Terror for today, thank you. And Thayer's in the house. All right. So that is the participants tab, which of course probably missed half the people. It usually does.
It does.
So let me scroll through here a little bit, see who may have been missed. We do apologize if we miss your name. We try to get everybody, but stuff happens. Like there, Karen Whitaker. Karen Whitaker was active in the chat this evening and didn't pop her up in the participants tab. Of course, Alina, our chat moderator. Thank you very much, Alina, for moderating the chat, feeding me the questions and all that great stuff. Let's see. There was Field Guy 316. Thanks for dropping in. Let's see who else is in here. There are quite a few people in tonight. So Trap Vision JP. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Yeah. There was Katie Palmer. Katie Palmer, if you're still around, thank you for joining us once again. Always appreciated. And all right, I'm going to scroll back down. So if you want to shout out, you better get it in soon because we're going to wrap it up. And I don't know. Is Adam Tillery lurking down there? I don't know.
That Adam.
Yeah. Mr. Lurky Lou. Oh, no.
Is it like a CB handle or something?
I don't know. There's Diane. This was the best show on the internet, and it is leaving. Yeah, we have 5 or 6 shows left. So let's see who we have. We have Dan. There's Dan. Yeah, so we have 6 shows left. So Dan is next week, Dan Class. Natalie Jones from Paraflix is on after that. Then Rob Guttrow with his new book on the Birdcage Theater. So we always love having Rob on the show. Brandon Elvis from the Ghost Hunters when it was on A&E. Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. And then The End is our last show. So we have 5 more guests, but 6 more shows.
Okay. That's math.
Yep. And then Victoria's going to have her own show.
I am?
Yes, you are.
What's
Come on,
news to
everybody.
me? That's news to
Encourage
me.
Victoria to start her own show.
Victoria needs a job first. So I am on 4 different radio shows this week. I don't know.
There you go.
And I'm hanging out with my new buddies, the Tennessee Wraith Chasers. That's going to be a
good stuff.
fun weekend. I'll tell Mike.
That'll be
Mike
a lot of
said
fun.
hi.
Those are good guys. Yes. Yes. Tell them I said hi.
Yes, I shall.
All right. Okay, everybody. You have a great night. We'll see you next week. We'll see some of you out there connecting the universe tomorrow. I encourage others of you to join us. 30-day free trial. And we're going to be talking about standing stones, stone circles, all that great stuff. And then next week, Dan class. So, okay.
Yay.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.